Welcome to the Millionaire University podcast. I'm your host, Brien Gearin, back with you today. And on this edition of the MU Pod, I have my friend and one of my first mentors ever, Bobby Hoyt. He is the founder of the popular personal finance and money-making blog, Millennial Money Man. Perhaps you've heard of him. And he is also the co-founder of Laptop Empires, where he and his co-founder, Mike Yonda, are changing hundreds, maybe even thousands of lives to this point today. And I'm living proof of that. So I am super stoked to have you here, Bobby. Thanks for joining us.
First of all, thanks for having me. Also, I don't even think I told you this. So now I own Stellar Brands as well. So
oh, that's right.
Millennial
Yeah,
Money Man
How could I forget?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of it just happened like not that long ago. So like
You got
Millennial
it
Money
all.
Man, Stellar and Laptop Empires are part of Stellar Brands, which we can talk about that as we get into it. But yeah,
That's right. Well, you think I should know because I'm a coach in your community now, the very community that you basically raised me in as a little broken fawn back in the day. So yeah, Stellar Brands. This is Bobby Hoyt. He's the man. So Bobby, we're going to talk about, you have a really cool story. I think a lot of people can relate to it. So I definitely want to dive into that. But we're going to really talk about how you built Millennial Money Man from the ground up to the behemoth that it is, to being the co-founder at Laptop Empires, and then creating the Stellar Brands, the umbrella company that houses a lot more and a lot more to come in the future here. So before we hop into that, give us your story. How did you get to where you are today, and where did you start from?
Mostly dumb luck, to be honest with you. Just totally, failing a million times and being fine. So I was 10 years ago, I was a high school band director in Pearland, Texas, and I had wanted to be a band director for my entire high school career. I was in band, I was in the drum line, and I didn't really have any other like aspirations. I just liked music a lot, so I was like, well, I could just be a band director. So I went to college. And then after I got out, I got a job pretty quickly. And then probably within the first, I'm going to say 2 weeks of having that job, I was like, I don't want to be a band director. Like, this sucks. I didn't realize this was going to suck so much. And so I had like an existential crisis, like as soon as I got a job, because like I found out very quickly that one, I am an awful employee. Like I really have some kind of thing that I probably need to go to therapy about, but I don't like being told what to do at all. Like, so, having to show up at the school at 6:15 in the morning and not be, band directors work a lot. So like I was leaving the school at 8 p.m. at night. And I was just miserable, dude. Like for the first, I was a teacher for 3 years, but I was just totally miserable. So I was looking into like everything. I wanted to start a real estate investment company, but my credit was god awful, so I couldn't actually do that. And then I was going to start a swimming pool company. So like in between the during the summers when I wasn't working as much, I have a friend that owns a pool company, and so like I was like cranking wrenches and like trying to fix pool equipment. And then I was like, this sucks too. I don't want to do that. And at the same time, I had some student loan debt. I had about $40,000 student loan debt. And that guy that ran the pool company was a good friend of mine to this day. Basically was just asking me about the student loans one day. And he's like, dude, what are you going to do with those? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to make the minimum payments and I don't know. What else do you do with them? And he was kind of like a big Dave Ramsey guy, and he had built a successful company and all that stuff. So he was just like, no, you really need to pay that debt off. Like, start making extra payments on it. And I think back then I was like still impressionable enough to listen to people, and I knew I wanted to be wealthy. So I was like, I'm going to listen to rich people when they tell me to do stuff. And so I started paying off the loans. And so I did that. It took 18 months from, start to finish to pay it all off. And then from there, I started writing about it. And I started a blog on medium.com back in the day, and I just started writing, and I was sharing stuff on Facebook, and it started to grow pretty quickly. Like, I guess I had never written before. Like, my grades in school were awful. Like, my English grades were probably terrible, but for some reason, like, people liked what I was writing. And it was really just like how to pay off debt and like just super basic stuff. And so probably about 6 months into that, I was like, you know what? I think I can quit my job and I can do this blog thing full time. And so I talked to she was my fiance at the time, but my soon to be wife, talked to her about it, and she was like, yeah, I think you should do it, And so I literally went in the next day and I quit my job. And then it was before the end of the school year. So I just hung out for the rest of the year. And that was probably my favorite time one of my favorite times in my career, I didn't do anything for like 3 months, dude. I was just like hanging out, none of the decisions mattered or, had any effect on me. And I was just sitting there collecting a paycheck. So, and then I actually left, like the last day of school and all that stuff. And that's where it got way harder. It got way more difficult because I was literally when I had quit my job, the blog had made $3 in Google AdSense, just display ads. So I didn't have any business plan. I didn't have any monetization plan. I had saved up some money after I paid off the debt, so I had I had some breathing room, but not tons. And then I just started to figure it out from there. So I wrote for a long time, and I, marketed myself, and I was on Twitter all the time, and I did all that stuff, and really nothing happened. And I was very broke, struggling a ton. And then the jeweler that did my wife's engagement ring, he reached out to me. This is probably like 3 months after I quit my job, and he had been reading the blog stuff that I was sharing on Facebook. And he had paid off a lot of student loan debt or I'm sorry, not student loans, credit cards. I think he had like $70-something thousand of credit card debt that he had paid off. And so he was like, I love what you're teaching. And he was like, my website sucks. I've got these marketing people that I've hired that I don't know if they're screwing me over or not. Like, can you take a look at it? And so I did, and they were not doing a good job. I wasn't like a master web developer or a master marketer or anything at that point, but I could write, and I knew what I was seeing was not good. Like the parts of the site were broken. It was just, the whole thing was kind of a mess. So I was like, I can help you with that. And then I remember he was like, well, how much is that going to cost? Because he wanted like local SEO and email marketing and all this stuff. And I had never pitched anybody anything before. And so I was just like, I'll do it for, I think I said $3,500 a month, or maybe I came up with some stupid number that was like $3,250 or something. I just totally made something up off the top of my head. And he was like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do it. And my mind was blown because that was like my teacher take home pay. Because I was just trying to make, enough I was just trying to get back to being whole again. And that kind of broke my brain a little bit about money. I was like, oh, you can just make money. Like you can just tell people you charge them a certain thing and then they'll pay you. And it's like, this is wild. I didn't know that this existed. So from there, I started working on his website, and I got a few more clients. He was really cool. He referred a lot of people to me, a lot of weird businesses too, but referred clients to me. And then right around September of 2016, my story got featured on CNBC, my student loan payoff story. And so just randomly, like I guess maybe from Twitter or something, I'm not really sure where they found me, but a reporter named Kathleen Elkins reached out to me, and she was like, I want to write a story on you. Tell me about your student loans. So we did that. And then that really was like kind of the start of when Millennial Money Man actually started to make money. So then all of a sudden I was seeing affiliate revenue and way more traffic, and it was awesome, and I was making the digital marketing income on the side. And so I really just kept growing it from there. And I guess, God, I'm realizing I'm not even a third of the way through the story. I've told this story a million times over the years, and it just keeps getting longer and longer. I'm like, oh my God, like I gotta figure out a short way to do this.
That's all right. We'll uncover it as we go. No, but that's perfect because it's a story of you. So you literally pulled the Band-Aid right off. Like you're like, you talked to your wife, your now wife, and she said, yeah, go for it. And you're like, sweet. Okay, I'm doing it. Tomorrow, the next day you quit your job.
Yeah.
You floated till the end of the year. Mm-hmm. The last day happened. You're like, oh crap, I actually have to do this.
Yeah.
And
that's scary.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. Now I know you probably don't recommend like just quitting cold turkey. Maybe for some that's the best. For some, maybe not. Maybe for others, not as good. But
oh man,
there's a lot to be said for doing that. You burn the boats.
I go back and forth on that so much. Earlier in my career, what I have learned over the years is like, especially owning a personal finance website, you do have to be careful about what you say because people will actually do it, which is kind of like, because I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've made some kind of offhand comment about something, and then somebody like went and quit their job or, whatever, and then they'll email me after. I'm like, ooh. Like I wasn't really, like, it was not really what I was trying to do. I was maybe just joking about that. But, I have learned you have to be careful about it. But I do go back and forth because, like, on the one hand, the way I quit my job, yes, I just, I had some savings saved up. And I was very young at the time. I was 26 and I didn't have any kids. We were renting a room from my in-laws at the time. So I hadn't even like, bought a house or anything. Like there were so many things that if I did it today where, I have a kid, I have another kid on the way, I'm married, got a lot more people that rely on me. I don't know if I would just cold turkey quit without a plan like I did. So I would say definitely don't quit without a plan, because what I did, it is shocking that I made it because I literally had no idea what I was doing. What I would say now is like, you should, if you have a dream, if you have something that you really want to do and you have like a good pathway to where you can see how you're going to replace your income, I would say like, you need to take the leap at some point, because so many people wait way too long, and it's like, I'm waiting for the perfect opportunity. And, sometimes that never comes. And I don't think there is a perfect opportunity really. But sometimes I kind of err towards the side of like, well, maybe you should save up 6 months of, save up a 6-month emergency savings and match your income for 6 months and all of that stuff. But I don't know. I think as I get older, I'm more toward the side of like, you should just take action, like whatever the minimum viable amount of preparedness that you need to do something special, like especially if you're going to quit your job and you really want to change your life, you're miserable where you are. I think you have to do that sooner rather than later. Cause like you could get in a car wreck tomorrow, like there's no guarantee that you even wake up tomorrow. So I'm like,
right.
I don't think that waiting forever is the right plan. I think so many people procrastinate for way too long because they're scared and all of that. And I've just learned, especially growing the business over the years, like it's better to do things and then figure it out as you go than try to like perfectly plan everything until, it's just, I don't think that that's the way. So anyway, that's
Right.
that's my thought on it is like, I think if you just err on the side of taking action, prepare, I don't even think you need like a super refined business plan if you're going to be like a freelancer or something like that, but you need to have at least an idea of like, how am I going to get to, 5,000 a month or 3,000 a month? That would be a good idea. I just didn't do any of
Right.
that. So don't do what I did,
You built it as you flew.
Yeah.
Well, and to that point, you said that you started the blog, you got a little bit of traction, you got to call it a break or a big break. You got featured on CNBC, that started bringing a lot more traffic. And you also mentioned that you didn't know what you're doing, and B, you started doing digital marketing on the side.
Yeah.
Was that one of those things where the opportunity presented itself and instead of thinking about it, you just said yes and then figured it out as you went?
I was so desperate, dude. Like I mean, I wasn't making any money at all. It was like the blog was like not working. And I just didn't realize that blogs, any, podcast blogs, YouTube channels, whatever, they just take a long time. Like if you want to be a content creator and you want to make money like that with an audience, it takes a long time to actually do it unless you go viral on TikTok or something like, and it's hard to count on that. And so I think it just took longer than I was expecting. And then I really needed to make some money. And at that point, I don't even think I even wanted to do digital marketing necessarily, but I was like, I'll take anything I can get. And one thing I've learned over the years is that like being scared and being hungry are probably the best things those are like the leading indicators for being successful. Like, because you'll do whatever. Like, and I think had I been making a decent amount of money with the blog, I would have been really like precious about like, no, I really want my freedom and I want my time and I want all the stuff, but I wasn't in that position. So I was like, I'll do whatever anybody will pay me to do. And I ultimately think that ended up being a good thing for me because, as I've grown the business and acquired businesses and all of that stuff, like there's a lot of uncomfortable moments in being a business owner. You have to do a lot of stuff you don't want to do. It's not depending on what kind of business you have, it's not this like luxury life of just sitting around and doing nothing and working for an hour a day. Like if you want to grow, like it's freaking hard and it sucks. There's plenty of times where you're going to be really stressed and things are really awful, but ultimately like it makes you a stronger person. I think it makes you a better person. And I think that's the skill set that you need to have. So I'm a big fan now of like going and doing some stuff you don't want to do because I think you need that skill.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. Or just terrified or, like whatever,
Right,
like any
horrified,
of it.
whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Millennial Money Man. When it started making money, you started getting traction. And I want to kind of shift towards making money with a blog and talking about, is that still possible today in 2025? Because I know you started this back in 2016, 17, 15, somewhere in there.
2016. ish,
Okay, so you're
2015,
going
2016.
on 8 years, almost 10 years
Yeah.
of the blog. So when you started making money, how do you make money? How did you start making money on the blog, first of all?
Yeah. So the CNBC feature brought in a lot of traffic. I was running Facebook ads back then, and that was like my main traffic source, which was kind of unusual back then. Most people were going after Google or Pinterest. But I was playing around with ads, and I kind of like figured out that if I could post my blog posts on my Facebook page, and if they got over a 10% click through rate, and then I applied paid advertising to that, then I would get like crazy cheap costs. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I was just like, again, I was like just trying to figure something out. And so I did that, and I was getting like clicks for like a penny, and it was awesome. It was like you could just get so much traffic. But then the CNBC stuff like really accelerated that, because then I had a Business Insider interview after that, and I think I got on CNBC again, and then I got on Forbes. Like it kind of like snowballed a little bit after that, which was great. And so I started making affiliate revenue. So like I had contacted a couple of student loan refinancing companies, and so I basically all I had I think on the blog was like this like products I like page where you could scroll through and basically just click on stuff and buy stuff. But I was getting enough traffic to where that was actually working. And then I started getting some sponsorship offers. I think the first one I did was like $300, and it was like structured very strangely because it was like $300, but it was an affiliate deal on the back end. So like they paid me $300 up front, but then I had to send a X amount of leads to them or to like backfill the 300. It was an awful deal. But I just started figuring out like how to get sponsorships, how to increase affiliate revenue. And I did that for a while, and I think between the blog and the digital marketing work, I got up to like 20,000 a month. That was like my best month before the next thing that I'm
Recurring
talking
revenue.
about. Yeah. So, well, I mean, it was like I sat from like 12 to 15,000 top line revenue for a while. About half of that from the blog, half of that from the digital marketing stuff. And then it started to grow, and it got to about 20 because I added more digital marketing clients. And then at that point, this is where the Laptop Empires piece of the story comes in. I was going to start a course on digital marketing because I had learned how to do all this local SEO stuff and email marketing and stuff for local businesses. And that was going to be called the Make Money Marketing Course, which was M$M. I thought it was being like real cute because it was Millennial Money Man and the M$M. I thought that was why people were going to buy the course.
That was pretty cute.
Thank you. So, but I was thought, as I was putting together a course, I was like, God, there's so much stuff to cover in here. And it just started feeling really bloated and really like crazy. And at the same time, Mike Yonda, who I went to high school with, but I wasn't really good friends with, to be honest, he was running a Facebook ad agency. And we just started jumping on calls, every once in a while, just kind of talking about stuff. So I started talking to him about the Make Money Marketing course, and I was like, these are the problems I have. Like, I want to cover Facebook ads, but I don't know how much to cover. I want to cover this. And he was like, I don't know, man. I think you should just like do one thing. Like, don't teach all of the marketing stuff. Just teach one thing. And I was like, okay, let me think about that. And then I came back and I was like, hey, man, do you want to just do a course together? Because like, I've got experience doing Facebook ads. You obviously run a Facebook ad agency. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we just put this together? And so we did. So like we were talking around Thanksgiving of 2017. And then then we started creating the course. We had to come to like an agreement on how it all going to work. We had to start an LLC, all of that. But basically it took 6 weeks, and we created a course called the Facebook Side Hustle course, which you were, one of the early members of. And we launched that in January of 2018. And the price of it at the time was $247. And at the time I had 13,000 people on the Millennial Money Man email list. Like, that was my email list. And so I had never done a launch before. I didn't know how that was going to go. I talked to a good friend, or actually I didn't know him at all at the time, but he was Mike's friend, Chris Warzakowski, who's a really, really good email marketer. And he put together the launch emails for us, and we did it in like a Jeff Walker style launch, which is just like,
and the sales page.
Yeah. And the sales page and like all that
Crushed
stuff. So the course, so the first day we launched it, and I didn't have any expectations of how much money it was going to make. Had no idea. We did like 25 grand, I think, the first day. And then the next 2 days, I think we did like 12.5 the next day and like 12.5 the third day. And then on the last day, God, I'm trying to figure out what the math is going to be on this. We did a lot. Basically,
Yeah.
we got to about $137,000 in revenue over the first weekend. Um,
Wow.
and the cool thing back then, and sometimes I wish I could go relive these days. Like we had no expenses. We had literally none. It was like
Yeah.
maybe a ClickFunnels account or something, but it was so low, and so like so much of it was profit. And then we shut the program down in February, and then we relaunched it in March at a slightly higher price, and that one did like 136 grand. And so from there, it took 14 months. We got to our first $1 million in revenue, with literally just like a course in a community that costs $47 a month on the back end.
47. Yeah.
Yeah, 47, and yeah. So I mean, that was that was obviously a huge shift in the business for me. Like, I never sold a course before. But it actually got to the point where I shrank my digital marketing agency down to one client, which was my original client. This is probably a year after we launched LE. And I kept that client for a very, very long time. But now I've gotten to the point where I don't do client work anymore because the blog's grown a lot. We still have Laptop Empires. We've added all this other stuff too. So, but we still have the Facebook side hustle course. So it's been cool. It's been a very interesting journey with that business. And then basically this past year, Laptop Empires came under the Stellar Brands umbrella, and Mike's still here and everything. But I had a bigger team and full-time employees and stuff, and I was like, I think we can take this thing to the next level. So that's kind of where I am now.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well,
There's still more.
yeah, for sure. You're one of those guys, you don't stop, and I love that about you. So it almost feels like the Laptop Empire's opportunity. It kind of, it came to fruition by chance, which is awesome. You just connected with a former high school classmate. You guys had similar complementary styles and work that you did. Created this course, but is the fact that you had all those years of building up the blog and having 13,000 people on your email list, do you feel like that was a massive springboard to the success of LE?
Oh, yeah. I couldn't have done this from scratch. Like, there was no way. I think what I didn't realize at the time, I didn't know that I was doing some really good marketing. Like, I was doing it without knowing that I was doing it. And so basically what I was doing was I was running those Facebook ads. I was getting people onto my email list. And then I was just creating blog post content that was like from the soul, like very, like just real stuff. I wasn't selling stuff. And I was just sending those people that content for a very long time, for, I think probably at least 2 years or maybe even a little bit more of just straight up nurturing those people. But I didn't know I was nurturing them. So I was surprised when we launched it. It was the first time I'd ever sold anything to my audience. And so the amount of people that were like, I don't know if I should do this course or not, but I trust you, so I'm going to do this. And so I had built just a really strong connection with my audience without quite understanding how to do that or what I was doing. And then what's funny is I feel like after that, I started going down the path of like, you following all the advice of like the direct response marketers and these guys, and you have to do things this way. And we had worse results, doing that, like trying to like automate the sales funnels and like, use a bunch of urgency and scarcity and all the stuff. And so actually what we've come back to after all these years is just doing the same thing. Like now I send emails. I try to write them from the soul. We do, we bring leads in and then we nurture them and then we launch the courses. But I'd say that the biggest difference now between now and back then is like the courses are not all of our revenue. Like we've diversified quite a bit from that. So we don't really need to get evergreen sales. And honestly, I don't even think that we've found that it's not as good for the students. Like when we bring people in during a launch, everybody's really excited. They come in a cohort. They typically perform better inside of the course. Like they get more stuff done versus when we had it evergreen and we just have people kind of dropping in randomly. Like they don't really feel part of anything, even though they are part of the community. It's like they're not in there with a bunch of other people that they came in with. So, like I'm happy to make less money on the course launches as long as we get people in that do really well and actually build a business. So that's changed quite a bit.
Let's talk about the community aspect of it, because for me, so I was one of the first people to jump in when you guys launched that very first one back in very early 2018. And the biggest thing for me was not necessarily the course itself. That gave me a technical skill that I had not yet acquired. but it was the community, the coaching community aspect that came with it for $47 a month that completely changed the trajectory of my life. I would not be here today talking to you had I not bought that course and added on the
Right.
community aspect. So for you guys, when you were first designing this, what about it made you and Mike decide that we need to have this community aspect as opposed to just a course?
Well, we talked about a couple of different options. We talked about a free community. We talked about a more expensive, because you kind of see like the full gamut of this stuff in the course selling communities or whatever. Like some people charge 150 a month for their course. Some people call it a mastermind and charge $1,000 a month for it. Some people just do, and what a lot of personal finance bloggers were doing at the time, where they were launching a course that was pretty inexpensive and then just making it a free community. And so that was one of the interesting things about Mike and I coming together. He was more from like the direct response marketing side, like the more like hardcore marketers. And I was kind of like a blogger, which is a different kind of marketer. And so we just kind of came to an agreement somewhere in the middle where it was like, let's have a community, but let's make it paid. So you have people in there that actually have some skin in the game. And also, like, if you're doing a free community, it does suck to sell something and then fulfill it forever for no more money. Like, that makes it hard. And you can't invest back into the community, like paying coaches, like we have you in the community. So we felt like we were trying to strike the best balance of like providing more, getting people that had skin in the game, but also keeping it affordable, because like the price point was something Mike and I were not in agreement on at the beginning, because $247 is really cheap for a course, especially one that we feel like is really good. It's, usually I think you can get a course up to like $2,000 before you have to start getting people on a phone call to sell it. Kind of depends on who it is and who's selling it, but it was like I wanted to keep it cheap. I was a personal finance blogger. I didn't want to put people out, but we also wanted to have a strong community and coaches and all sorts of stuff. So we had 3 coaches in the beginning, but we also had a huge influx of people. So we needed a lot of help with the coaching. And then, yeah, we've kept that model mostly the same for the last, 6 years.
Right. Well, and from the student side of it, or the person seeking the knowledge you're sharing in your course, it's one thing to get that and have access to that course, but with it come a million questions that will arise over the next year.
Yeah.
Right. And having that outlet of somebody who, obviously the course creators plus the few other coaches you guys paid to be in the community to just be there to answer questions when they arise.
Yeah.
That made all the difference for so many of us who were part of that community, because we had somewhere to turn to when we said, well, we learned this in the course, but now I've actually started my business and my client's trying to say this thing, or this prospect is saying this. What do I do? Like literally just these, how do I do it? Having that outlet made all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was to me, like, that was a special time too, because it's really hard to get that many people to come into a program. And the level of excitement was like the most I have seen in my entire career, especially that first group. Do you remember, were you in the first group that came in or the second one?
Yeah. Very, very first one.
Very first one. Dude, it was just such a like special thing.
It was.
And it was so cool. Like that was like a unicorn type of moment. And then I've long given up on trying to recreate that first launch because I just don't think that it's possible. It was just too many things that came together in the right way at the right time. But yeah, having the community, what I love about it is like seeing stories like your story. And we talk about this a lot at Stellar Brands now. Like we're trying to create more Brians. Like that's kind of our North Star, because really it's like you came in, you didn't have any experience. It took you 12 months to get your first client, but you kept hanging in there and doing it. And then now you're crushing it, and you're well on your way to, doing some really incredible things, and already are. So like we want more of those people. And I do think the community is important for that. And I think especially as like all this AI stuff, it continues to kind of come out. I think that people are going to want more humans, I battle myself all the time. I'm like, do I just think that because I'm telling myself that, or do I think it's real? But I don't know. I just think that things are going to get real weird and real fake, and too automated. And I think that there's going to be a real value to actual community. And so that's kind of where, where we've been, what we've been thinking about with Stellar Brands with all of our businesses.
So in this day and age, let's say there's someone out there listening who's got a skill or a talent or a business doing something, and they have the opportunity to share it with the masses, if you will, create a course or create a community. What's it like out there today for somebody who has this ability to do this? Do you create a course? Do you create a community? Do you do both? Are courses dead? Are they booming? What does the industry look like right now in that space?
Yeah, so I've never been a big fan of just creating a community. And it's just something like we've tried that and we've tried to, and just because I've tried it and it hasn't worked does not mean that it's not a good idea. I just want to put that out there. But we've just found that it's very difficult if you're going to sell like a low dollar community product. It's really hard especially if you're doing paid acquisition where you're running ads, like to get profitable on that or anywhere close or even break even is difficult with ad costs today. So I'm more in favor of, selling a course with the membership on the back end of it like we have. But I'm also a big fan of the higher ticket coaching programs, and we're rolling out 2 of those actually this year. It's something I've done before. We did it at Laptop Empires for a while, and I think that is not where you should start because it takes a lot of capital and there's a lot that goes into doing a high ticket coaching program. But I think that could be a part of somebody's business that they're going to run a course, but there are plenty of people still sell a lot of courses. I do think that personally, the best way to do it right now is by getting people onto your email list and just nurturing your email list a ton and not just like selling random crap to them all the time. And then making offers for your program. And you can have an evergreen funnel that you make offers on all the time, or you can do it like we're doing it with the quarterly launches. But courses still sell. So that's, but I would err more toward that side than doing like just a monthly membership that's especially like a low cost one. Because it's a lot of fulfillment, hard to get it profitable if you're going to try to run ads. So I definitely like courses right now.
Okay. And tell us about the other aspects to Laptop Empire. So there's a Facebook side hustle, there's Brilliant Bookkeeper. Kind of explain how you guys expanded from just Facebook side hustle.
Yeah. So actually, Brilliant Bookkeeper, this is where this is going to get into the weeds, but Brilliant Bookkeeper is not part of Laptop Empire. So, and I'll explain what that is. But Laptop Empires, we've done a lot over the years. We had a Facebook ads for bloggers course that we rolled out. We had a course growth accelerator high ticket program that we rolled out. And over the years, what we kind of found is like the Facebook side hustle course is still the one that people seem to be, gravitating to the most. But we're actually rolling out a higher ticket version of that product. Because we want to expand how we're helping people. Because like Facebook side hustle is very narrow. It just teaches just local lead gen. But what we found is that like as our entrepreneurs have kind of grown up, and they get to the point, maybe not to where you are, but they get to like that kind of like 6-figure mark, like then they start needing help with a lot of other things. And they need help with their finances, or they need help with hiring people, or just like having an operating system for their business. And so that's really what the high ticket version of that program is going to be. It's still going to be teaching the Facebook ads, but it's going to be more of like how to actually grow an agency, how to actually grow a real business that is sustainable, and that's something that where you can actually get some of your time and freedom back. So that's where we are with Facebook or with Laptop Empires right now. We've got the blog Millennial Money Man, and that's primarily affiliate revenue. And then we also sell courses through that. So we have a program called Brilliant Bookkeeper that we started back in 2023, where it's similar to Facebook side hustle, where we're teaching people how to become online bookkeepers. And so we partnered with the CPA named Kristen Metter, who is amazing. She owns Gradient Accounting. She's a fantastic accountant. She came in and partnered with us to do the program. We launched it. It was really successful. So we've been doing that one. We also have a program called Proofreading Launchpad, which is just teaching people proofreading. And then from there, this is still in the final steps, but we acquired an accounting firm as well. And so now that's why we created Stellar Brands, because like now we have all these different parts, and we feel like there's a path to like create a true journey for an entrepreneur from like beginner baby entrepreneur all the way to like a really, really great, 6-figure, multi-6-figure, 7-figure company. And we now kind of have all these different pieces that we can use to get people there. And so now we're Stellar Brands. So it's gotten a lot more complicated, but at the same time, it's the mission for us has gotten a lot more clear. And it's not just like random courses. Like there's actual pathways for like, if somebody wants to become a bookkeeper, then we can help them become an accountant, and then we can help them, become a franchisee of a accounting franchise. So like there's a lot of different things that we're doing that are kind of happening in the next couple of years.
So I want to touch on that for a minute, because you've grown from just Millennial Money Man to Stellar Brands, like in everything in between. What was it like in starting to add people, starting to create a team, and was there a point for you in where it was transitioning from being the solopreneur and kind of the guy doing everything to, oh, I kind of need to delegate and lead? What was that like for you?
Okay, so that's a good question because we're gonna go down a path here.
Let's do it.
So one of the most difficult things to do, I feel like, as an entrepreneur, is to start hiring people, and do it well. And fortunately for me, like I have the personality type where I will delegate more. I'm more likely to delegate than hold on to something myself, which is a big help in that area. But when I first started hiring people, I started with a virtual assistant, and it was all contract. I started with a virtual assistant, and then I started with like a bookkeeper. I actually over delegated, and I got to the point where I was just like giving stuff to people, and then I didn't know what was happening, and then they weren't doing good work. So like I've made a million bad hiring decisions, but I always felt like I never want to be trapped by my business. And I've always had this kind of fear. And I think I've got some kind of fear of being trapped generally, because that's why I quit my teaching job. And I'm always like trying to wrangle myself into a place where I'm, quote unquote free. But I felt like if I just stayed, if I was just running the blog by myself and just running my digital marketing agency by myself, if anything went wrong, or if the market changed or anything happened, then it's always on me. And I was doing way more work as I was kind of growing these, growing the blog, growing the digital marketing agency, had laptop empires, and I was like, I'm working too much. Like this is actually crazy, and I felt like I had to start delegating, or I was just going to get crushed by the business and just trapped in this life that I didn't really want. So yeah, I started hiring people. I hired a lot of contractors. I mean, at one point at Laptop Empires, we had like a 20 contractor team, which was just completely ridiculous and not a good idea. And I struggled with contractors for a very long time. And then eventually I had a friend that was just like, why aren't you just hiring like real employees? And I was scared to do it. There's some weird fear. I think a lot of people, if they're like a freelancer or, somebody that, hasn't hired their first person, they feel like I don't know, you're taking this big leap to hire your first W-2 person, because then you're on the hook for the salary, right? Like that's and obviously it cuts into your margins, right? Like if you're hiring people and you're paying them, good salaries, and all of a sudden you're maybe taking less money and you're kind of just hoping that these people go out and make more money for you. But it is really not that bad. It's actually great once you start hiring really good employees. And I feel like I finally, after several years of hiring people, I'm finally starting to figure out what a good employee is, and also how to manage them and set up their role to where they can actually be successful. That's the biggest thing that I messed up with almost all of my earlier hires and all of my early employee hires. I wanted them to just do way too much stuff, and I didn't have like a super defined narrow role for them to do. And when you don't do that, you're really setting people up to not do well, because they don't know what they're supposed to do. They don't know how they can be successful. I also wasn't very good at just like hiring the right personality fits and things like that. So it's just a long process. And so what I would say to anybody that is thinking about hiring their first employee is that you should do it sooner rather than later, because there is a steep learning curve and it's a very expensive learning curve, but you can get to where I am right now. So where I am right now, we implemented a system in the business called EOS, so Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it really is just like a business framework. And I don't even know if it's the best one. It works. And so I technically sit in the visionary role for the business, which is the same thing as CEO. I have a head of operations, which is the integrator in the EOS system. And I am now all of a sudden doing less busy work and grunt work than I've ever done in my career. And it's very strange. It almost feels like I'm like not needed sometimes. I'm just kind of like there and people are doing all this work and doing great things. But it's kind of like the dream, right? Like when you start a business, you like want to actually have that freedom. And now through hiring people and technically making the business more complex with multiple employees, we'll have 9 by the end of this year, probably. It's actually given me more freedom than I've ever had. And it's, like I said, a very uncomfortable feeling because you're just like, what am I supposed to do? And like in the US system, it's like your job as a visionary is to like basically think about things. Like think and try to see obstacles that are coming up. I mean, you still have to like go out and like, kiss the babies and stuff like that and shake hands and all of that. But I mean, for the most part, like my job now is to just like look at emerging trends and try to figure out what's going on and how I can navigate the business. And then I have a team that truly runs the business for me. So it's good. It's cool, but again, very strange.
Yeah. But would you recommend that people coming up in a similar fashion to you, that they start with contractors and kind of get the feel for working with others? Or is this one of those where you think that, hey, maybe if you have the opportunity, go hire an employee right off the rip?
I would start with contractors. I think, like I said, there is a steep learning curve. And the thing with employees is that it is a lot more expensive. Like if you're going to learn
more runway.
Yeah. If you're going to learn, you might want to learn with somebody that's a little bit cheaper. So like for me, again, like my first hires were contractors and that was fine. Where I messed up is that I tried to build a contractor team. And that's not when you have a lot of people, because you work contract with a lot of companies, like there are boundaries to like being a contractor. Like your clients can't call you at like 3 a.m, or maybe they can, but you probably don't want them to. And it's very clear that
they can, but I won't be answering it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's very clear that like you don't work for them. Right.
Right.
And so when you have like an all contractor team, what I found is like, I'm running into all these boundaries with all of these different people. And like, this kind of sucks because I want us all to push towards something, but like, they're all like, no, I don't work at these times and I don't do this, which it makes sense for them to grow their businesses. And so for me, it just got too frustrating and honestly, like not productive having a full contract team. And so then I took the leap into hiring people. And the other thing that's great about having employees is that you can really have people that are invested in the company. Like I've set aside equity for employees in the company when they get to the leadership team, which basically like the C-suite sort of. But we do profit rewards where we actually take a slice of the profit and we distribute it. We're adding healthcare this year. We've got unlimited paid time off. We've got 401k match. Like we have all these benefits now. But you get people, if you hire well, that are like super invested in the mission. Like they care about it. Maybe not quite as much as you do as the business owner, but like they care about it a lot because there's actual financial success for them and they feel good about what you're doing and they feel like they're part of something. And so that's where we've started to see like the most traction when we started getting to that point. But it takes a long time to get there. Like it's taken me years to get to the point where like when I was first hiring employees, like we didn't have any benefits. And so then you run into this issue where it's like, okay, I can pay a salary, but like, I'm not going to get a lot of talent because we don't have the benefits, So it's like but you have to kind of work with what you got. So then you'll hire people and hope that they work out. And a lot of times they don't, if they don't have a lot of experience, or they don't have a good background. So like, we're just now getting to the point where it's like, we can offer cool benefits and, equity and all that stuff to people and get higher tier candidates. And that's really when things like start to take off, but you got to get there somehow. And you got to learn the lessons of management and hiring and all of that stuff before you get there.
Yeah. There's so much that goes into it, and I'm on that journey right now as we speak. And there's a lot of things that you have to do as the entrepreneur, as the business owner, to make sure you're on the right path. But then there's things that you got to do to make sure you're doing the right thing in terms of bringing in the right people. So it can be a never-ending battle. And it's all about just getting that experience. I mean, when I started learning from you guys years ago, it was all about just getting the experience. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. But if you stick with it and you don't give yourself a way out, you'll eventually learn it. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, this is why I'm such a big advocate for having some kind of legit operating system in place for your business. Like we use EOS, but, we're not like professional EOS implementers. But I would say that that's when I really started to get the most clarity in the business, and like things started running really well because like I was, we had that contractor team that I talked about, but we didn't have an operating structure for the business. So it was just chaos. And then I started hiring employees, but we still didn't have the operating system for the business. So it was like less chaos, but still kind of chaos because it was like we didn't have like real clear directives and like a structure for how things work. Now we do. And so I would recommend, even before you hire your first employee, like check out EOS or any other equivalent to that, because it's very clearly defined. It very clearly defines what you're supposed to do in the business and then what everybody else is supposed to do in the business, and like how you structure an organization, how the chain of command works, and things to look out for. Like that structure seems, like we avoided it for a very long time because we were like, we want to be, we feel like we're a pretty cool group of people, and we wanted to be like super creative and like have our own special way that we run the business. But it was like, we weren't getting anything done. And so it was like, okay, well, maybe we should look into having some structure, but we were all scared of it because structure sounds very restraining. Right? Like it seems like, oh, now I'm going to be trapped by the business. So we put it off for a long time. But then once we finally did it, we were like, oh, this is so much better. Like this is there's a reason that every, major company in the world has like an actual business structure, because like you have to have it. So I would recommend, if somebody is in that kind of spot where they're like, they have some contractors, maybe they're thinking about employees at some point, or if you have a couple of employees, like get an operating system in place, like rip the Band-Aid off. It sucks to implement. It's not fun. But it's so much better. And then that's where I feel like all that structure as an entrepreneur, like truly gives you the freedom that you need.
Yeah. On the other side of the pain and growth is the freedom that you desire, right? So you're living proof of that.
But then you get the freedom, and then it's really weird. I've been actually struggling with that quite a bit lately because I'm like, like our structure with the head of operations in EOS, like that person runs the business. Like they fully run the business. They're responsible for the P&L. They fully run that company. And because we have multiple companies, it's a little bit different because we have multiple integrators or multiple head of operations, but they run everything, and so like now I'm in this place where I'm trying to like figure out like, okay, what am I supposed to do? How am I useful? But the worst thing about it is that you feel like if you're a founder, you're always going to feel like everything's too slow. Like always. It doesn't matter how much money you're making or where things are. It's like, I want to double the amount of things that we're doing every quarter, because we set quarterly goals and all of that. Mm-hmm. And I'm always like, why are we not doing enough? Like, why is this so slow? But then as you kind of get into the EOS community and you learn about it, it's like, that's how every CEO is. And so that's the biggest thing that I've had to get used to, is just figuring out like, how do I just chill out and be okay with the pace that things are moving, and not get in the way, because that is the worst thing you can do as a CEO, is just get in the way of your people that are trying to do things. So that's kind of the weird spot that I'm finding myself in the business. And we talked about this, I think, at the very beginning, like getting uncomfortable. Like every level of the business that I've gotten to has been uncomfortable. But I've also become like a better person because of it. And I've become like, I've grown a lot. I feel like I'm a lot more mature and know a lot more now.
Yeah, it's part of the journey. It's like we said at the beginning, being comfortable, being uncomfortable. I've noticed that in my own journey in my life, is that there's always some level of uncomfortability, and that's just the normal.
Yeah.
Like there'd be nights I'd stare at my ceiling, looking up and be like, you know what? There's not a whole lot of money coming in this month. Kind of weird. Yeah. But like I would just be so at peace with it. I'm like, I'll figure it out. Like I'm not that worried about it. I might have a 10-second moment of holy crap. But then it's like, we'll figure it out. I always do. Like, it's just, you just have to have that belief in yourself as an entrepreneur.
Dude, that's so necessary. And I think that's probably, there's probably a lot of things that separate great entrepreneurs from ones that fail. But I think just having that mindset, because I've had that so many times, dude. Like, I've had so many times where we'll have like incredible revenue spikes, and then like 6 months later, like the floor falls out, and then it's just like, oh my God, we're so screwed. And that is certainly amplified when you have a team and when you have employees, because then like, if things are bad in the business, like as the founder, you're the first person that gets hit. Like you're not, especially if you feel like you've got a good team. And so like I've been through that, and then I've been through the upswings back the other way, and it's like, oh dude, this is great. We're freaking rich now. But
we're going to Disney World.
Yeah. But the same thing happens as a solopreneur too. Like you have those months. I remember for the first year, maybe even 2 years of the business, every single month, the business reset in my brain. It was like, I'd do like 10 grand in a month. And then I'd be having a conversation with my wife on like the 31st day of the month, like, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this again. And she'd listen to me do that every single month for months, just freaking out every single time. And then I just realized like, it's all going to be okay. Like I've always made this work. Like you always, and maybe it's just being an entrepreneur, like as I don't always feel like it's something where I strategically plan out how I'm going to save the business or save myself. But I think if you're wired like an entrepreneur, then your brain just kind of figures out ways to do it. It's just like, you have to, like I got to support my family. And so then you start figuring out, okay, maybe I could sell this thing, or maybe I could do lead gen this way. And it's like your brain kind of on autopilot helps you succeed. The biggest thing is you just can't take too much risk. Like you can't, like if you're going to start a business, you can't like take out some massive loan and have no plan on how you're going to pay it back. And then like, that's how you really get caught. As long as you keep it, especially in the early days, like you keep it lean, and you stay nimble and you figure out ways to make money, like you'll be fine. It's just, you're just going to have a lot of sleepless nights, but that's just part of it.
That's part of the game. Just got to take the leap.
Yeah.
Well, that might be a good place to bookend this, Bobby. I know you and I could keep going. I might have to have you back for a part 2, but dude, this has been a ton of fun, man.
Yeah, dude.
I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I think it's super, super inspirational, and you guys have been changing lives in the work that you do, mine included. So I think there's going to be a lot of nuggets that our listeners and friends of MU can pull from this.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. I was shocked when you told me how big the podcast is, so hopefully I didn't sound too dumb. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm super proud, not to be like your dad, but like I'm super proud of everything you've done, man. It's so cool. And it's so cool to just remember, baby Brien, baby business Brien, when you're like, I don't know how to get my first client. It was like 12 months of that. And then now you're just freaking crushing it, dude. It's so cool.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And like, honestly, I wouldn't have had this opportunity to be at MU if it wasn't for you guys. I know at one point in time you had me go on the Side Hustle Nation podcast.
Yeah.
To rep Facebook Side Hustle and get a little mention into my business at the time. This was 3-4 years ago. And that's what led to Justin and Tara here at Millionaire University finding out about me and having me on as a guest, and the rest is history. So, so many cool things have happened, man. I can't thank you enough, but I want to make sure that our listeners have the opportunity to check out everything Millennial Money Man, LE, Stellar Brands. What's the best way to get involved in your world?
Okay. So without making this too complicated, because there's a lot of different brands you can go to, just go to stellarbrands.com. And then also you can find me, millennialmoneyman.com. Mill Money Man is my handle across all the social media stuff. I'm on Forbes too, just Bobby Hoyt. I haven't written on Forbes in a while though, so I'll, maybe I should get something out. But yeah, so just Mill Money Man, Millennial Money Man, Stellar Brands. You can find me. You can Google me if you want.
All right. Awesome. I love it. Well, folks, you heard it here first. Go check out Bobby out on the interwebs. And thanks again, man. This has been a ton of fun.
Yes, you're the best.
All right.